The opinions, views, and conclusions expressed in this show are those of the show host and co-host and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of KPFV FM or its affiliates.
98.1 KPFB presents The Last Free American Town. And now here is your host, Andy Alberti.
Well, here we are back again with The Last Free American Town. I'm Andy Alberti, your host. And the previous show was with Bill Kerr, and now we're into a second hour, and we are going to be having a second guest. The phone number here, before we get any further, is 775-990-4900. And we're producing the show live today, March 22nd. If you tune in any other day than today and you hear us announce the phone number, we will not be answering because there'll be repeats of the show. And our shows repeat on Saturday and Monday, same time. And tonight we're going to replay the show at 6. So you'll hear it again tonight because we think this is going to be a very interesting conversation. Did you ever drive down the street and you're doing 38 miles an hour or 42 miles an hour in a 35 zone, and all of a sudden you see all these flashing lights and 3 cars pull you over and drag you out and beat the living daylights out of you and then haul you off to jail? No, I didn't think you did. But our guest today did have an experience with the local sheriff's department, and she's going to be talking about that. And without waiting any longer, our guest is Leah Aldrich. And Leah, do you want to give us a little background on yourself?
Well, hello, and first of all, thank you for having me here. I am a musician, longtime musician. Ever since I was a kid, I started playing professionally at age 11. I recently kind of semi-retired, and I no longer travel all over the world. I am now caregiver for my 86-year-old mother, and that's okay, you know. Kind of burn out on the whole music thing, so it was time for a break. And I've been living here. I moved here to Pahrump in 2006 from California to get away from that oppressive state. And I thought here would be, much better. And so far, for the most part, it has been. We do enjoy a lot of freedoms here, more so than they do in the People's Republic of California. And that's basically my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Well, there you go, folks. Well, that's the end of this show. We'll go on moving on. I'm making a little light here because the subject today is what I consider to be a very serious subject. We hear too often about the way things work, and sometimes in our brains we think it works a certain way until we get involved in the way it works, and then we learn that all is not what we thought it was. So I want to turn over the show today. I'll still be here because I'm kind of nosy. And I want Leah to tell us what her story is, what's happened, and how things came about. So Leah, if you want to just kind of take it on, you're on.
Okay. Well, I'm basically what you would call a sovereign. I do not contract with the government anymore. I do not apply for state licenses, and you can do the math on that one.
You want to clarify what the definition of what a sovereign is?
A sovereign is I am my authority, and the only authority higher than me is the Most High. A citizen is a subject. A sovereign is the authority. I choose not to stand underneath our government, but stand over it. And I do not feel that I have to ask permission to go about my daily life accomplishments or whatever, just to, go from point A to point B. And beyond that, like I say, I do not contract with the government for any reason, and I don't ask permission. And as long as I do no harm to anybody, I don't cause any, personal or property damage, then I'm okay. I claim common law jurisdiction, and I strongly feel that's what we should return to, because state statutes and codes only apply to the people that wrote them and state employees, and that's been upheld time and time again by the United States Supreme Court, as well as the right to travel. It's been upheld like 100 times, and I think they're probably getting tired of having to hear this issue because it's, been brought before the court over 100 times. So,
Leah, before you go past that,
okay.
my understanding about sovereignty was that the way the Constitution of the United States was written, every citizen was considered to be endowed with all of the things provided to that person by their creator.
Exactly.
And so when they create, they will, and I want you to correct me if I've got a misunderstanding here. So each of us, in order to live more harmoniously, have given up a few rights to be governed that we can
Yes.
all live with.
Yes. Uh-huh.
So we created the state. So that's when they created the federal government, and then through the federal government, they created the states. But the citizens have always reserved all of the rights they originally had, with the exceptions of the ones they were willing to relinquish to live harmoniously. Is that basically it?
Well, pretty much, but I don't think relinquishing rights equals to living harmoniously, I think people are perfectly capable of policing themselves, I'm not saying that we don't need the police. I'm saying that we don't need law enforcement, because what we have is not law enforcement. We have agents that are acting under the color of law. Now, why do they call it the color of law? Because it's not law. It's law-like, but it's not law. Okay? It's codes. So right there, law enforcement, well, that's kind of a fraudulent, fake term.
Didn't they used to be called peacekeepers?
Peace officers.
Peace officers.
Okay, and I'm getting to that too.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So if we remove law from law enforcement and call it what it really is, which is codes, because they're just enforcing statutes and codes. And boy, let's get to that next one, enforcement. What's right in the middle of that word? Force. Okay, we have codes by force. We don't have law enforcement. We have code enforcers. Okay? Now, if we could return back to, I came along in the mid-'60s. If we could return back to something that I've really never seen in my life, well, actually I did when I was a little kid growing up in Arkansas. We did have peace officers. And they didn't breach your peace like police do now. They didn't wait around every corner with a radar gun to see if you go 5 miles over the speed limit. Okay, we did have peace officers at one time, and that's what they're supposed to do originally. They're supposed to uphold the peace. If somebody breaches the peace, you call them, they show up. If you have trouble, you call them, they show up. They shouldn't lurk around every corner trying to get you on any kind of statutory violation. And statutes are not laws. Let's get to that. Statutes are not laws. And you say, well, yeah, it is the law. No, it's not. Then why would they call it statutes? Okay? Statutes, like I say again, statutes only apply to the lawyers that wrote them, the society of lawyers that wrote them. And I don't know what that society's called because they've yet to tell us. And also they apply to government employees. That's who it only applies to. It does not apply to us. And I dare any judge in America to tell me where is the law that says your statutes apply to me.
I'm not going to even even attempt that one.
Yeah. And, like I say, I'm not trying to break the law by not having a driver's license. I just don't want to enter into their licensing agreement because it is a contract, okay? And all contracts by law are supposed to be bilateral contracts. And what we have now, when cops pull you over and they say you must sign, well, you're being forced to sign a contract. How is that fair? How is that even lawful?
Actually, you can have a unilateral contract, but it only means the person who creates that contract is the one obligated to it.
True.
Bilateral
True.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, like I say, they say, you have to sign it. Well, no, you really don't. And there's ways you can rescind your signature when you do sign a ticket, which is what I did. I made it clear, no uncertain terms, that I refused to contract with him.
Well, I think you better go back to kind of what led up to that.
Okay. Well, let me first preface this by saying that all crimes are commercial in today's society. All justice courts are central banks. They're there for one reason and one reason only, and that is to make money. And how do they make money? They make money off of you. That's it.
Do you think that's
has
how they were?
Has nothing to do with justice.
Do you think that's why they were originally established, or did
no.
they morphed into
what we
that?
have now is a complete perversion of law. That's why they call it color of law, because it's not law. It's color of law. So, but what led me here was on Friday, November 11th, 2016, I had traveled to Smith's Grocery in my personal private conveyance, and that's what I call my automobile. It is not a vehicle. Vehicle is a commercial term. Now, if anybody can prove that somebody's paying me to drive, which is yet another commercial term, my vehicle for any kind of, monetary gain, then yes, I would have to register, get a license, and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, back to the original story. I was traveling to Smith's Grocery, buy some groceries that day for my mom. I was coming back down Wilson, and I was almost to Wilson, and it's right at the corner where the little AT&T service hub is. And the cop passed me going east. I was going west. He was going east.
Oh, okay.
He flipped a U-turn, got right in behind me. I stopped at the stop sign, full stop, then proceeded to go, and he turned his lights on. Well, I know not to ever pull over on the side of the road, because they can tow you if you're there, because the excuse can be is, you're on the public highways or whatever. So I pulled into the AT&T place because that's privately owned property. And he came up, and, immediately it's driver's license, registrations, and insurance. And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. Driver's license, registration, insurance. I'm like, well, apples, peaches, and pears. If you can speak in a complete sentence, we can go from there. And I'm trying to be nice, and I'm trying to be kind and jovial, and God's peace be to you. How can I help you? Is there an emergency? And I said, and he goes, I need to see your driver's license, registration, and insurance. And I said, well, can you give me a reasonable, articulable suspicion of a crime that I've committed? And his doors kind of got blown back right at that point, and he's like, whoa, wait, what have we got here? And he says, well, there's a crime committed. I says, well, can you bring forth the man making the claim so I can apologize and make restitution? Because if I've caused harm to somebody, I would like to know. And he goes, well, the state is the victim. I said, the state? I said, the state, is that his name, the state? And he goes, no, the state of Nevada. I says, well, where is he, and will he show up to court? No, I'll be there to represent the state. I said, oh, are you an attorney, or are you a peace officer, or are you, a law enforcement officer? Well, I'll be representing the state. Can I see your law license? And he's like, no, I don't have one. I says, well, I'm confused here. You are the witness, but you're also the attorney for the state. Who's the victim? Well, the victim's the state. Okay, once again, I have a right to face my accuser. Will he show up to court? No, I'll be representing the state. So, we're going round circles here.
Sounds to me like he's got more than one position that he's taking.
Well, according to him, he does.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear it.
So, I just need clarification here, because it's all about, words and definitions. It really is when it comes down to it. And like I said, and I told him, I says, well, just to let you know that I'm operating in my private capacity. I'm not operating in a commercial capacity.
You
And
want to kind of expand on that a little bit,
Well,
so
that-
the listener will understand the point
operating in
you're
my
making.
private capacity, like I say, as the Supreme Court has upheld time after time after time, an individual has a right to go from point A to point B, you know, without being taxed, without being harassed by the state. And that's exactly what I was doing, you know. Also, the Supreme Court ruled that automobiles are consumer goods and cannot be taxed. Think about that. Automobiles are consumer goods and cannot be taxed. What does the DMV do?
Well, you have to pay licensing taxes.
Yeah, because you register
Yes.
your vehicle. Here we go, commercial term, vehicle. No, it's my personal conveyance. It is my automobile. It is not a vehicle. A vehicle is a motor carriage that is used for commerce on the highways. That day, I was not transporting goods to be bought or sold. That day, I had no paid passengers. Therefore, I'm not obligated to license my personal property with the corporation of the DMV. You follow me?
So technically, in order to have a license or get a license, you have to be a commercial vehicle.
Yes.
Is that
Yes.
essentially what the law
And
says?
here's something that just hit me this morning. Of all the people out there that the DMV has scammed for decades into thinking that they need to have a commercial license and need to register their personal conveyances with them, do you know if you operate with a commercial driver's license, and they call it a CDL, right? Don't they?
Mm-hmm.
C stands for what?
Commercial.
Thank you. If you operate with a commercial driver's license...
Do I get a candy
and-
bar or something
No,
for
no, no.
knowing the answer question?
No. And here's something they don't tell you because they're making just too dang much money off of it. If you operate with a commercial driver's license, register your personal property with the DMV, which then converts it into a vehicle, and you're using the highways and you're not doing anything in commerce, if you're not transporting goods to be bought or sold, if you're not transporting paid passengers, and again, transporting, that's also a commercial term. You got to learn these terms. They don't want you to know it. That's why when you watch the news and there's an accident, it's always the driver, the vehicle, the driver, the vehicle. They just nail these words into your head. So to you, it just sounds like it's common, you know, that's what they're supposed to be called. But it's not. It's a great big lie, okay? It's a great big crap sandwich, and unfortunately, we've all taken a bite of it.
Is that the technical term?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, anyway, back to my point. I was thinking about this morning. If you are operating with a CDL and you've registered your private property to the DMV and you're not operating in commerce, you're committing fraud. Chew on that one.
Well, that's sort of... I get the point.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. But you know,
But
they're
you're not going to
they're
pursue
not
that
gonna,
at this point.
They're
right?
not going to come yank you out of your house for that one.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Mm-mm. No. It's all about revenue.
So
All these corporations only exist for revenue. And also another interesting point I need to make is when you register your vehicle or your personal property, which then becomes a vehicle, you get a certificate of what? Registration.
Don't ask me. I
Okay.
have no idea where you're
Well,
going.
it's registration, and you get a certificate of title.
Oh, yeah.
Guess who owns that title now? DMV. That's what gives the cops the right to tow your car.
Well, you know, it's interesting. If you take your car off the road because you're not going to drive it,
Yeah.
you have to pay a fee so they know it's not on the road.
Yeah. Because, see, now that I'm operating my private capacity, if they take my automobile, I can go right down to the courthouse, file a claim, and drag the cop in the court in a half an hour as a defendant in a criminal case. Because that's grand theft.
Okay, so let's get back to, I appreciate the explanation because a lot of people, even right now, probably
we'll
are
help
asking
them understand
themselves,
more
yeah,
about my story and what
right.
happened.
And I think we should get back to your story. And
Okay.
where we left off was one of the local sheriff's cars has pulled you over.
Yeah.
and wants to see your license and registration.
Okay, well, he informs me that I committed the crime of going 5 miles an hour over the speed limit. I can't confirm or deny it. I don't think I was. I was going right between the 35-mile zone and the 45-mile zone. If you go down there and look at the AT&T building, just right to the right is a street sign that says 45. Now, he's alleging that, okay, so 35, 40, so 40 miles an hour, he's alleging. And he said it was a crime. And I informed him, if you look up the case, people versus battle, traffic infractions are not crimes. I know.
Really?
Yeah, I know. Well, then
Who
you just
knew?
lied.
Who knew?
Yeah. Traffic infractions are not crimes. Okay?
Okay.
Now, when you get a ticket, it says for the crime of. And it says the crime of this, the crime of that. And guess what? When you get to court, you go to criminal court? No, you go to traffic court. Well, there's some fraud right there. It says on the ticket, I committed a criminal offense. But when you get to court, you go to traffic court. And it all becomes civil.
If it's a crime, are you entitled to a jury trial?
Yes, you are. Yes,
Have
you
you
are.
ever asked for one?
No. This has never happened to me before.
Okay. Are you thinking about it?
Well, we'll see.
Okay.
The best thing to do is handle it administratively, so you never get to court. So, anyway, let me finish up what happened real quick.
Sure, go ahead.
I refused to show him ID because I told him he didn't have a reasonable, articulable suspicion of a crime. And he says the crime I committed was going 5 miles an hour over the speed limit. Now we've established people versus battle. Traffic infractions aren't crimes. So, okay, hold on.
That's a legal case.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Precedent.
Yeah, you can Google it right now. And
what is it? I'll Google it.
just try traffic infractions are not crimes. People versus battle.
Okay, I'll look for it while you're talking.
All right. So anyway, he calls his supervisor, and it was Sergeant Jackson. I think her name's Kelly Jackson. She came out real nice woman, and we had a little, education type of meeting where I told her again what I was doing, and she said she understood what I was doing with the whole sovereign citizens thing, which I kind of had to stop her at that point because if you can find me one person that refers to themselves as a sovereign citizen, I will show you one that is confused. A sovereign is an authority and a citizen is a subject, and they directly conflict. So when someone uses that term to describe another individual, it's actually slanderous. So I corrected her real quick. I said, you can't be a sovereign and a citizen at the same time. It's kind of akin to a round square.
Or in governments usually considered sovereigns?
They try to demonize us by calling us sovereign citizens when there's absolutely no such thing. It cannot exist. Like military intelligence. Ba-dum-bum. So
Yeah, right.
Anyway. So Sergeant Jackson showed up for a while, and, we had a nice, good chat, and Teeter says, well, right when she arrived, he goes, look, I'm not going to give you a ticket. I just need to know your name. Well, there and again, here we go. If they have what's called the name, then you are a person. You are not a person. You have a person. You cannot be a person. You can have a person, but you're not. And if you look up the definition of person in Black's Law Dictionary, a person is also a corporation. Okay? Courts are corporations. They can, and if you know commercial law, corporations can only do business with corporations. So until you say, yes, this is my straw man, and you accept the liability, boom, they got you.
Define what a straw man is.
You ever seen a name in all capital letters?
Sure.
On your driver's license?
On your IRS?
On your IRS, on your checkbook?
Yeah.
On your tombstone?
Right.
It's a dead man. It's a fictitious entity, and I dare you to go out to any cemetery in America and find me a name on a tombstone that is not all capital letters, because it's a dead man. It's a fictitious entity. It's a corporation, and they got to have that corporation to act upon. Without it, they got nothing. So as long as you don't give them the name, they can't do anything. Now they can kidnap you and hold you it used to be 78 hours, but now they'll hold you up to 5 to 10 days trying to get that name, trying to create joinder so they can haul you into that court. So the whole thing is he wanted the name, but with the promise, I'm going to let you go. I'm not going to give you a ticket. So I have a common law ID, which is signed by a notary. I ended up giving him that. But my name is not in all cap letters.
Right.
But he arbitrarily converted it, which is a crime. It is a crime. And he also arbitrarily converted my right to travel into a privilege that day when he gave me a ticket for not driving with a commercial driver's license and not registering with the corporate entity of the DMV.
I want to back up just a little bit,
okay,
because you said something that most people don't realize.
Mm-hmm.
You have an ID that was created by you
mm-hmm.
through a notary.
Through a notary.
And my understanding of that is that I had a friend that did this.
Mm-hmm.
A notary is authorized to identify your true identity.
Yes.
So when you go to the notary,
mm-hmm.
they have to either have proof of who you are,
yes,
or know you personally to be the person that you say you are.
And you have to have 2 witnesses.
And then they log it in their notary
mm-hmm.
book,
mm-hmm.
and you can take then that notary stamp and create an ID card for yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Which has to be acknowledged by anyone
yes.
who sees it.
And mine has been. I've taken it. They've accepted it at the post office. They've accepted it paying bills. They've accepted it when, sometimes they'll accept it when I pick up like a drug prescription, and sometimes they're like, well, I don't know. But yeah, if people don't realize how much power a notary has, a notary essentially has the same power as a judge.
So this is something most people don't realize. And so now, and we're going to get back to your story because I really want that to get
Yeah, we need to
told.
get that out.
But that ID card, you don't have to go to the state.
No.
And
no.
They keep talking about
I'm not a child of the state.
They keep talking about elections needing identification.
Mm-hmm.
There's no reason they can't go down to the local notary and get there and make an ID card for themselves.
Yes, if you still want to, be a U.S. citizen and vote, yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So
yeah.
It's a little sidebar, but
yeah.
It has
and there's another sidebar we could do about U.S. citizen, but I think that's another show.
That's another show, yeah. And I think we may do another show, yes.
Okay. So basically, I think he wanted to impress his superior. So he came back and said, hey, I'm gonna let you get out of here. I'm going to let you go home and feed your mother, because, I'm sovereign and you're subject. But little does he know that I'm king. He's subject. And, I'm acting as king. And I will be asking the questions. Because the one in power asks the question. The one that's the subject answers the questions. So everything he asks me, I fire right back with a question. Because you got to remember, anytime you're stopped by the police, anytime you make a statement, you are testifying against yourself. Even if it's just a yes or no question, always answer these guys with a question. It's a smart thing to do.
That's okay? Right. Yeah.
So he says, well, I'm going to give you a ticket today. Well, why are you going to do that? Because you just informed me that I would not be getting a ticket and you would let me go on my merry way. Well, it's because you didn't show me your ID when I asked for it. Oh, so you're taking it upon yourself to punish me. Like, you're my daddy and I'm the bad little child. I'm the slave that just stepped off the plantation. You got to whoop my butt and get me right back on here, massa. So, yeah, okay. He gave me a ticket for driving 5 miles over the speed limit, driving without a commercial driver's license, unregistered vehicle, which I don't own. Also, he cited me for no insurance, which is a lie because I am self-bonded, backed by $20,000 in silver coin that is signed by a notary and is just as good as a court order from a judge. And here's the great part. He goes, well, I don't know if this is really legitimate. I don't think a notary has that much power. He goes, my mom's a notary. I'll ask her. And I'm like, if your mother could hear you right now. I said, son, you go home tonight and you ask your mommy how much power she has as a notary. He goes, okay, I'll do that. And I said, well, go ahead and give me the ticket. I'm just going to void it out anyway. So, and I did that with my signature, the way I signed it.
Did you do it in front of him?
I wrote no contract, and I told him everything's under protest and duress.
Was all that
I signed it
written,
UCC 1-308
Was all that written on the ticket
on
where you
where the
signed?
signature line is.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Leah of the Aldrich family. There is no capital name there. There's, that is not the straw man.
Okay.
Leah's the given name of the Aldrich family. That's family name. It's
Now,
not last name.
We're
No,
coming up on
no,
a
can't have
short.
a last name.
We're coming up on a short break here.
Okay.
When we come back, I'm not going to interrupt anymore, I
Okay.
hope, but I want you to kind of really get to the meat of your story
Okay.
because the public needs to hear it.
Yeah, it gets
So,
better.
Yeah, we'll be back in just a few minutes.
You're listening to
98.1 FM, where freedom rocks your boat.